Hey guys, welcome to our first online lecture. I hope that this is helpful to you all. I hope this allows you to understand the concepts better and to be able to go back and refresh with these lectures. So remember, you can come back and view these lectures anytime you'd like. I'd recommend definitely reviewing them again before you take a unit exam. So they will be on our YouTube channel for the remainder of the year. So I hope you take advantage of that and view them as often as you need. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to just go through an overview of the nervous system for this first lecture. So let's start with the organization of the nervous system. So there's two major divisions in the nervous system, and we've been kind of learning this in our stations this week. So the first major division is the central nervous system, and we probably all know that this includes the brain and the spinal cord. So this is the main part of our nervous system. This directs the activity of the entire nervous system. And then we have the peripheral nervous system that kind of works with the central nervous system to relay messages to the central nervous system and back. So this includes everything except the brain and spinal cord, basically. So this includes spinal nerves that transmit information to and from the brain, and sensory receptors respond to stimuli such as pressure, pain, or temperature. So anytime we're feeling anything, this is going to start at or we have any sensory output or input at all, it's going to start with the peripheral nervous system. So we have two pictures here. This is the peripheral nervous system, and we have the central nervous system. So we have two types of nerves. We have efferent and afferent nerves. We're going to start talking about the efferent nerves. These are nerves that carry impulses from the central nervous system. So we're starting from the brain and the spinal cord out to the muscles and glands. So these are going to send messages out to our body. So there are two subdivisions of this. So somatic nervous system is going to be voluntary. This is going to be anything that's stimulating our skeletal muscle and causing them to develop tension, which we know is flexion of our muscles. And then autonomic or involuntary nervous system, and we can look at the word auto and think it's automatic. So we know what systems in our body are automatic. So that's going to control the cardiac muscle, which is our heart, and the smooth muscle, which is our internal organs. So thank goodness we have this automatic nervous system, so we don't have to think about things like our heart beating or our food digesting. So the autonomic nervous system is going to prompt the heart to beat faster when we exercise and cause smooth muscle to move food through the digestive tract. So that is the definition or the reason for the autonomic nervous system. So then we have the afferent nerves, and the afferent nerves are going to move the opposite direction. So these are going to be nerves that transmit impulses from the sensory receptors in the skin, muscles, and joints to the central nervous system. So basically, we are relaying information back to the central nervous system. So any time we're feeling something with our skin or experiencing any type of environmental stimuli, either hearing, seeing, touching, then these are going to be our afferent nerves are going to take that message back to our brain or our central nervous system. So nervous tissue, there's two categories of nervous tissue. The neuroglia, or as we'll probably talk more about it in class, it'll be known as the glial cells. And these are really important nervous tissues. They are going to be the majority of the nervous tissue that we have. So these are specialized cells that perform support functions. So basically, neurons in general transmit information in the form of nerve impulses throughout the body. So it's basically going to support the nervous system. So there are four types of these glial cells. The first type is astrocytes. These are positioned between neurons and capillaries. They link the nutrient supplying capillaries to neurons and control the chemical environment to protect the neurons from any harmful substances in the blood. So they're going to basically protect the nervous system. So they account for almost half of all neural tissue. So then we have the microglia. These absorb and dispose of dead cells and bacteria. So they're like our garbage men of our nervous system. They're going to dispose of any waste or bad things that we don't want in that system. Ependymal cells form a protective covering around the spinal cord and central cavity within the brain. So these are going to be our policemen. They're going to protect our nervous tissue. And oligodendrocytes, these wrap around nerve fibers and produce a fatty insulating material called myelin. And through our stations, you should have learned more about myelin or the myelin sheath, or also known as swan cells. And so we have two forms of these myelin sheaths, and it's the swan cells and the satellite cells. And so those are vocab words that you guys should already be familiar with. So what do we need to know about neurons? So this all you should also be familiar with, so I'll go through it pretty quickly. But a typical nerve cell consists of a cell body, which we know holds the nucleus and mitochondria inside of it. So it's like the brain of the cell. And then we have the dendrites. These are going to collect stimuli and transport them to the cell body. So they're like our boat port, remember? We're going to collect the materials and then transport it through our neuron. The myelin sheath, this serves as an insulator of the axon, which increases the rate of neural impulses. So the myelin sheath, remember, when you were making your neuron, these little protectors here are the myelin sheath. And it's going to kind of protect it from injury, but it's also going to transmit the signals more quickly. And so then we have the nodes of Ranvier, the exposed axon between the swan cells. And you can't really see it too well here, but these are just going to be that exposed parts of that axon here. Depending on the neuron, there can be up to thousands of axon terminals that connect with other neurons or muscle cells. So not all neurons are going to look the same. We're going to have different neurons for different functions. Form follows function. So synapse. The axon terminals are filled with tiny sacs that contain chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. And as we learned in our last section, our neurotransmitters that signal to our muscle fibers are going to be acetylcholine. That's an example of a neurotransmitter. And so these are going to be the little messages that go and transmit messages to other neurons or other cells. So axon terminals, as we know, they don't touch. There's little gaps in between these axon terminals. And these are your synaptic cleft. So this is basically, synaptic cleft is kind of a more generic term for these gaps. As we talk about what it's connecting to, you get more specialized terms. So when we were talking about the neurons that connect with muscle tissue, we call those neuromuscular junctions. So we were connecting a muscle fiber to a neuron, and so instead of the synaptic cleft, we called that the neuromuscular junction. So synapse is an intersection including the synaptic cleft, basically. Okay, so there's three types of neurons. So we have sensory or afferent neurons. These carry impulses from the skin and organs to the spinal cord and brain. We have motor neurons or efferent neurons. These transmit impulses from the brain and spinal cord to the muscles and glands, directing the body action. So they're all communicating together. They're all talking to each other at this point. Interneurons or associated neurons, they form bridges to transmit impulses between other neurons. So you don't just have one big long neuron going from your fingertip to your brain. These neurons are going to communicate with each other. And then our last slide is going to talk about three different neuron structures. So remember, form follows function. So not all of our neurons are going to look exactly alike. They have different functions within our bodies. So bipolar neurons, they have one axon. Here you can see they have one axon and one dendrite, sensory processing cells. These are found in the eyes and nose. So they're going to do more acute sensory reception. So they're going to need basically less to do because they're relaying really a lot of sensory information into one neuron. So then we also have unipolar neurons. These have a single axon and dendrites on the peripheral and axon terminals on the central end. So these are going to carry impulses to the cell body and out to the central nervous system. So they're carrying impulses in, carrying it to the cell body and out to the central nervous system. And then we have multipolar neurons. These have one axon and multiple dendrites. So we have one axon here and then multiple dendrites branching off of the cell body. And these are going to include all motor neurons and interneurons. So this is going to be the bulk of our neuron structure. Okay, well, thank you for watching the video, and I hope this helps you. Make sure you're filling out your note outline with this video, and I'll see y'all in class.